Okay, so when you think of Brynhildr, the Valkyrie, what do you see? Probably a warrior, right? All armor and swords, maybe that ring of fire. It's a powerful image. But what if her real weapon wasn't a sword at all? What if it was a cup? We're going to dive into some incredible ancient artifacts that tell a completely different and maybe even more profound story about who she really was.
So, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll peel back that warrior layer to see what's underneath. Then, we're going to get our hands dirty, so to speak, with the archaeology, these amazing vessels of memory. After that, we'll talk about the sacred mead she served up, and oh boy, how that all went wrong with a potion of forgetting. And finally, we'll see how she takes it all back in this incredible fiery finale.
All right, let's get right to the heart of it. We're going to shift our whole perspective. Forget Brynhildr the warrior for a second, the one with the sword and shield. Instead, I want you to think of Brynhildr the guardian. Her power, it's not in her weapons, it's in a cup, a sacred mead, and this profound divine wisdom, what the ancients called gnosis, that she gives to others.
Okay, section 1. Let's really push past that image of the warrior maiden. We're not just talking about a fighter here. We're talking about a high priestess of memory. And the archaeology actually backs this up. It points to this whole other side of the Valkyries, a deeply ritualistic, almost sacred dimension that most people just don't talk about.
Yeah, and if you look at the source material, it talks about her flawless foundation. And what that really means, her true core identity, well, it wasn't how good she was in a fight, not at all. It was her role, her sacred job as the keeper of this vessel, this cup, that literally held divine inspiration. She was the one protecting the truth, the one doling out that deep insight to heroes and even the gods.
So you might be asking, okay, that's a nice story, but where's the proof? Well, the physical evidence is fascinating. It comes from two main types of artifacts, both from the migration period, these really cool gold discs, and some incredibly ornate ceremonial bowls. You could almost say these artifacts are the vessels that hold her real story. All right, first up, we've got these things called gold brachiotes. Just picture thin gold medals, okay? People wore them as protective charms. And the image you see on them again and again is a female figure. You guessed it, our Valkyrie. And she's offering a drinking horn to a rider or maybe a god. Now, this is crucial. She's not a waitress bringing a drink. No way. This is a high priestess in the middle of a sacred ritual, a transfer of power. And then you've got the hanging bowls. Archaeologists find these in really high-status graves, princely burials like the famous one at Sutton Hoo. These were not your everyday soup bowls. These were fancy, symbolic objects. The thinking is they were used to serve sacred liquids during really important feasts, the kind of ceremonies where you'd swear oaths, recite your family tree. Basically, they were used in rituals all about memory. And what's so cool is the design on the bowls. You see these intricate, swirling patterns, all interwoven. And it's not just to look pretty. The art is actually mirroring the purpose. Those complex fluid patterns, they're meant to evoke the very nature of memory and wisdom, how it's all tangled and connected. It's almost like a map of the mind's own well of memory right there on the bowl. So, the big question is, what was actually in these cups and bowls? Well, that brings us to the main event, the mead of gnosis. We're talking about the sacred liquid that was at the absolute center of this ritual. This was the stuff that could literally bridge the gap between our mortal world and the divine. They called it Otherier, or the mead of poetry. But don't let the name fool you. It was way more than just something to make you a better poet. Drinking this stuff gave you gnosis, divine cosmic knowledge. The idea was it could let you see straight through the web of deceit, all the illusions of daily life, and look right into the heart of your own destiny, your weird. And you know what? We see this exact ritual play out in the myths. In the poem Sigdrifumal, the very first thing Brynhild does when she starts teaching the hero Sigurd, she hands him a horn full of mead, he drinks it, and boom, just like that, her incredible divine wisdom is poured directly into his spirit. This isn't just a story, it's a demonstration of her true power. Now, let's circle back to those gold amulets, the brachiotes. This ritual is exactly why she gets the title Victory Driver. See, she's not just fighting with the hero, she's actually controlling the flow of Hamminja, which is this really cool concept, kind of like luck, destiny, and spiritual mojo all rolled into one. When she offers that mead, she's giving the gift of mental clarity, the wisdom you need to cut through the chaos and actually forge your own path. But every great story needs a conflict, right? This incredible sacred duty has a very dark side. And this is where we get to the absolute tragedy of Brynhilder's story, how her entire purpose gets flipped on its head by a potion of forgetting. So this is where it all goes wrong. Another queen, Grimhild, gives Sigurd a potion, and it's the polar opposite of what Brynhilder offered him. The text actually calls it a cup of void. Think about that. It's not just about making him forget a person. It's about wiping the slate clean, erasing every bit of that divine knowledge, that gnosis, that Brynhilder worked so hard to give him.
And here's the conflict in a nutshell. You've got the meat of memory on one side. It gives you wisdom, shows you your path, and makes things like honor meaningful. And on the other side, you have the potion of forgetting. It just destroys all of that. It erases wisdom, traps you in a web of lies, and basically just shuts down the truth.
The fallout from this is just devastating. That hanging bowl, which used to symbolize a full, rich soul, now it's a metaphor for a totally hollowed-out life. Can you imagine? The guardian of memory has to stand by and watch the enlightened hero she built become a puppet, a prisoner of amnesia. And all that incredible power she had, her sacred gift, it has nowhere to go. So it curdles inside her and turns into this black hate.
But this isn't just a story about loss. It doesn't end in tragedy. In this last section, we're going to see how Brynhilder pulls off the ultimate move. She uses her own death to take back her power, to reclaim her role as the cupbearer by forging memory itself in the fire.
So what does she do? She joins Sigurd on his funeral pyre. Now, this is not her giving up. Far from it. This is a deliberate, powerful, ritual act. She's offering her own life as the final libation, the ultimate sacred drink for the gods. Why? To make sure their real story, their shared memory, gets preserved forever in the mead of the poets, where the lies of the living can't touch it.
I mean, think about that shift. It's so profound. She's not just the person who pours the mead of wisdom anymore. Through this final act, her entire life story becomes the mead. She becomes the source of truth and inspiration for everyone who hears her tale. And when you boil it all down, that's her legacy. It's what we can call the Shield Maiden's choice. She chose the cup of truth, even knowing it would lead to her death, over a throne of lies that only promised an empty life. And that very same lesson, that choice, it's what's echoing out to us from every single one of those gold discs and silver bowls. So why should we care about this ancient story today? Because what Brynhilder's journey really teaches us, what these artifacts are whispering to us, is something totally universal. If you lose your connection to your true memories, to your own story, then honor just becomes a meaningless word. And without honor, well, your will, your purpose in life, it has no compass. It just drifts.
In the end, she's a reminder that our most powerful weapon isn't a sword we can carry, but the wisdom, the memories we choose to protect. Her story is that sacred horn, still being passed down, still inviting us to take a drink. So I'll leave you with the same question she poses to us all. What's in your cup?